This is Logan Hanks with the Living Fully Loaded podcast. I'm honored today to bring a friend and my preacher, Brother Peter Jeffrey. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. I'm actually very excited to be here. This is the first, I know you're into a lot of, outdoor stuff and things like that. And that is not up my alley.
Yeah. Well, you're my first preacher on here.
Okay, all right.
So,
well, very good.
And that's what I actually thought about when I was getting ready to do this episode. I said, man, I'm glad the route that I've gone with the podcast because it started out American Huntsman, which was like only hunting.
That's right.
And I said, I would like to be able to talk to a broader group of people. And so now I'm sitting here with my preacher.
There you go. So. And I was thinking about this, though, because, back in the day, preachers used to have to do shotgun weddings. So, I don't know what brand they used or what. I don't know. I've not yet had to do one yet, but I
maybe someone will hear this and they'll ask you to do a shotgun wedding.
Yeah, there you go.
So, all right, the way I want to lead off is I like to do some general questions just to get us warmed up.
Yeah.
All right, the first one, you got to give up burgers, pizza, or tacos. Which one's it going to be?
Okay. That is a very tough question. Burgers, pizza, and tacos. I really think, this is probably an unpopular answer, but I really think it's going to be pizza.
Well, that is actually the one that usually gets gone the most.
Really?
Most people pick pizza.
Is it because it's so terribly unhealthy?
A lot of times it is. They're like, all the carbs and stuff. I thought you were going to say burgers because then Alan Willie would have felt a little better if you had said burgers because he is one of two out of like 20 guests that have said burgers. So sorry, Alan, on that one. But
I hate that. But, I just think about, okay, that feeling you get when you got that meal and you're super hungry and it's like you bite that first bite and it's like, man, it's everything. Burgers do that to me every time.
Yeah,
if it's a good burger.
Yep. Yeah, a pizza is what I'd give up because I love tacos.
I do too.
And I've had guys on, we talk about they're so versatile. You can do anything with a taco.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and burgers. Yeah, I mean, if you can't be American hardly and give up the burgers.
I would feel like I would be unpatriotic at that point. I'm with you 100%.
All right, you got to watch one movie for 24 hours in a row.
Okay.
What's it going to be?
This is I'm an odd movie kind of person, but I will say that the movie that I would watch for 24 hours would be Bull Durham.
Boulder, is that with is Robert De Niro in that?
It's Tim Robbins,
okay.
And it's all about minor league baseball. It's what's the guy? Kevin Costner.
Yeah, I love
Tim
Kevin
Robbins.
Costner.
Yeah. And he plays a very different role there. It's half comedy, half not comedy. But I'm a baseball fan.
Yeah.
And so I'm specifically a minor league baseball fan because that's what I grew up watching.
Now, could a guy I'm not big into baseball.
Yeah.
Could I appreciate the movie?
You absolutely could because, first of all, because you are a little more of an insightful movie watcher.
Oh, yeah.
You like the story behind the story.
Yeah.
So even though you wouldn't get all of the baseball stuff, the storyline is absolutely engaging and hilarious. Disclaimer, there are some inappropriate moments, but we just kind of move on past that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll check that out and I like Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, wasn't he, was he in Mystic River?
Yeah.
All right, now I love that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Tim Robbins, he's a great actor, and Kevin Costner, I'm a big fan of Kevin Costner.
Absolutely.
All right, if they made a movie about your life, who would you want to play you?
Oh my gosh, this is difficult because it certainly would have to be somebody that would be as good looking as I am.
Yes, it'd be a hard part to fill.
That would be hard right there. I think, well, okay, this guy looks nothing like me.
That's all right.
Probably not anything like me, but I at times in my life I really want to be just like him. I would love to have Sam Elliott play me.
Oh man, Sam Elliott is the man.
because he just opened up his mouth and it's like liquid gold.
Yep. And the stash.
Exactly. The whole thing.
I mean, and he didn't have to look exactly like you, but
no, they do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, Sam
he might have to bulk up for the role, but that would be good.
Have you seen Russell Crowe lately?
No, I have not.
Man, he's playing some film, and it showed. I think he put on like 40 pounds for this role.
Wow.
He didn't even. I mean, he almost is unrecognizable in this part because they had a picture of him from Gladiator next to his this latest, and you're like, what? Who is that? It don't even look like him.
You know who would be more realistic though, and I like this guy a lot too. Rest his soul, Gene Hackman.
Okay, yeah. When did Gene Hackman die?
It's been just a couple of years ago, probably longer than I remember, but he died a little bit ago.
Well, he was. We got the Young Frankenstein thing up. He was the blind man.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's right. He is like a chameleon. He's played every kind of movie role. That you can imagine.
I did like Gene. He was good. Gene and Sam, both of them are good.
Yeah.
And Sam Elliott, though, I mean, he's like the American tough guy too. Like
absolutely.
Like just looking at the guy, he just looks like a tough dude.
I don't think he's ever raised his voice in a movie.
Yeah, he doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah, doesn't have
exactly
to.
Right. I love it.
All right. Well, I liked that. Hey, and we're not going to discuss any politics, but did you watch the dumpster fire last night?
I did not. I did not. I could not. It could not bring myself. I just knew it would be like two jetliners heading for the mountainside.
Yes.
And so I decided to keep my blood pressure down.
Yeah.
And just opt out for this time.
You didn't miss anything. The best thing I saw, it was somebody had instead of aging them, had made them younger, and it was like 2 5-year-olds up on the stage. I saw a meme on Facebook or something, and I was like, that is it. I watched like the last 20 minutes, and I saw enough in that time span. I was like, gosh. So, yeah. It was a mess.
Yeah, I'd like to think that somehow our country's in good hands, but I'm just not sure about that.
Me neither, no. Yeah. And that doesn't look very hopeful with the two there, but
we'll just go to God in prayer about that, won't we? Yes, we will.
All right, so let's go back where it all began.
Okay.
For people listening that don't know, you don't have what I would consider the usual path to being a preacher.
No, in fact, it is just about the most, as they say, circuitous path that you could ever imagine. So my dad's a preacher. So is my mom.
Yeah.
And but my dad was a preacher growing up, and so I grew up, sitting on the front row, the whole thing. And so teachers and people would ask me if, are you going to be a preacher someday? I said, no way.
Yeah.
No way. I said, my dad makes up those sermons and he goes and preaches them, and they always sound really good. That's like magic, juju stuff. I could never do that.
Yeah.
And so that was my starting point. Absolutely not.
Yeah. What age was that? How old were you?
That would have been like, 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
When you're just kind of, people are asking you what you're going to be and, all that kind of stuff.
You really have no idea at that age.
No.
Yeah, that's, and it's funny you say that because I've kind of learned as I'm getting older, anytime I say never, I've like pretty much doomed myself.
It's true.
Because when I was all the way up to probably up to 18, the last thing I was ever going to be was a farmer.
Yep.
Like, that's what people were like, man, you got it made farming. And I was like, I hate it.
Yeah.
I was like, I hate it. And now I'm a farmer and I love what I do.
Absolutely. And you're really good at it.
Yeah, I guess, maybe, hopefully.
Well, yeah, you are.
So, all right. So then where did you fell in love? You had a passion for music.
Yes.
All right. When did you discover that?
Well, that was from day one. There was 5 kids in our family. I had an older brother, and I have 3 younger sisters. And so we lived literally in the mountains of Oregon. When I say mountains, it's like we don't have mountains like this down here.
Yeah.
Smoky Mountains are just hills. Yeah. And so we were way up in the mountains, and my dad was the pastor of the only church in town. And so we had no TV, no, barely electricity.
Yeah.
We actually had a party line. You probably don't even know what a party line is. It's your telephone that hangs on the wall, rotary dial.
Yeah.
And there was one line for the whole town. And so you'd have to pick up the receiver and you go, hello? And if nobody was there, then you could go ahead and dial. And
Wow.
but then somebody else could pick up and listen to what you were saying. Yeah.
So you better not gossip about your neighbors.
The gossip was everywhere, So anyway, but my mom had to find something for us kids to do. So at the age of 4, every child started piano lessons because she is a great piano player.
Yeah.
And so we took piano lessons, and when we got older, it was like all 5 of us, one day a week. You got, and then when we got into trouble, she'd send us into the youth room where there was a piano, and we'd have to practice. We just had to practice.
Did y'all all practice on the same piano?
Uh-huh.
Man, I bet that thing got wore out.
It got wore out. It started wore out and it stayed wore out.
Yeah.
And then we moved up to Washington, and my brother and I were really close. Our birthdays are just one day apart.
Yeah.
He was a year older. And so we both started taking guitar lessons in elementary school, and he just stuck with the guitar, and I was more at home on the piano. So we just grew up that way.
Yeah.
So at 13 and 14, we started our own band, and we played at little, youth camps and things like that. And it was, from then on out, that was it. That's all we wanted to do, and that's all we did.
Who sang? Who was the singer?
I was the primary singer.
Yeah.
My brother always said he couldn't sing. But later on, when I was 18, he was 19, we actually started playing the nightclub circuit. Mm-hmm. And you had to play like 4.5 hours a night.
Oh, man.
And so he had to learn how to sing. And he actually became a very good singer.
Yeah. Now, what was the name of your first band?
The first band when we were 13 and 14 was called Zephyr.
Zephyr.
Yes.
It's kind of got like a Def Leppard sound to it.
Kind of, sort of. But the funny thing about that name is it sounds kind of rough.
Yeah.
But Zephyr is a cool breeze.
Cool breeze.
Yeah, so it was like,
did y'all look like a thesaurus for that, or how'd you come up with that?
No, it came out of the Bible somewhere.
Yeah,
we just picked a word.
Yeah.
We barely knew what it meant.
What did you start out? What genres were y'all playing?
Well, at that time, Christian contemporary or Christian rock music was just really becoming popular.
Yeah.
And so we were like on the cutting edge of making all the church people mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was this big debate going on about how drums were evil instruments.
The devil's
because,
music.
It was you don't even know, and anything electric guitars and things like it was just it was crazy. And of course we were 14 years old. We didn't care.
Oh yeah.
And we had our hair long, and you weren't supposed to do that either.
That drove you to do it more.
Exactly.
That was
exactly right.
When I played the guitar a little bit when I was a teenager. Never got just super good at it, but I loved metal, like Metallica and Slayer and all them. And I was notorious for learning intros. Like I could learn the intro to a lot of songs.
Yeah.
I could play the best 5-second intro on my own guitar.
Yeah.
And one of our youth ministers used to try to get me to play for the church.
Yeah.
They were like, play in the youth band. They were trying to start a band. And I always said, if y'all ever decide to play any Alice in Chains or Metallica, I'll come and play. But,
there you go.
Because even then, we had some like Skillet and Red and some of them, but nobody in the church was jamming that stuff. No. And I really didn't discover it until probably in my later teens because nobody was like promoting it. And I remember then I was like, man, where has this been? This stuff's pretty hard.
Exactly.
Like, it's some good stuff.
That's exactly right.
So what year was that whenever you were, 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, so that would have been like late 70s.
Yeah.
77, 78. I graduated high school in 1980.
Okay. So. Oh, man, the golden years there. I was not a child of the 80s, but my spirit is that of the 80s.
Really?
Man, I love 80s music. My wife and I cannot agree on songs very well. Yeah. And but 80s on 8, that is like the one channel we can
both
jam.
settle in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like 80s on 8 too. I that was kind of our thing. When we started playing nightclubs back in the day, live music was the big deal.
Oh yeah.
So every big nightclub had a band 5-6 nights a week, and so you go in and there was light show and live music, and at the time, the 80s, it's the kind of the stereotype. It was the cocaine decade, and it was true. It was true. We would walk into. We used to play this chain of nightclubs in Seattle called the Rain Tree, and they were the hoppingest joints in town. And we would start playing at 9 o'clock, so we'd show up an hour early.
Yeah.
And at 8 o'clock, there were about 500 coked up 21-year-olds.
That'd be a rowdy
bouncing
crowd
off the walls. I mean, literally. And so you take the stage, and it was like you were famous or something.
Yeah.
And they had no idea what they were cheering about. They were just amped up.
Well, it made it fun for y'all.
It was awesome.
How you said, were y'all 15 at this point?
No, at this point we would have been like 19, 20.
Yeah. How many nights were y'all playing a week?
5 or 6.
Oh, so y'all did it every night.
Yeah, every night. It's 9 to 1:30.
What kind of? I mean, how does that pay the bills doing that? Were y'all able to do that?
If you're 19, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first professional nightclub thing that I did. My brother and I joined this lounge band. That was when the tail end of the cheesy lounge bands.
Yeah.
And so it was a husband and a wife, and one of our friends played drums, and then it was 2 of us. And we played a lot of hotel chains and casinos and things like that. So we played, the pop music of the day.
Yeah.
The Diana Ross and the Donna Summer and all that, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember we played the Red Lion Inn in Redding, California. And it was the first job that I ever did. And I got my own room. I could go to the pool anytime I wanted to. I got 1 meal a day, and I got $363 for a week.
Did that feel like big time?
I thought I'm never doing anything else in my entire life.
You were like, I've made
this is it. $363 for a week, and I only had to play 6 nights a week.
And 1 meal a day.
And 1 meal and a pool.
Yeah.
What could you? Yeah.
So you were traveling. See, I didn't realize y'all were traveling that much even then. So y'all actually went to California then.
We did. We went down to California. We went across to Idaho, Montana. We did a lot in Oregon. And then my brother and I decided that it was actually time to make a little bit of money. So we, electronic, technology had advanced. And so we bought some electronic gear, drum machine, a sequencer, and we just went down to the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And we actually did make pretty good money then.
So y'all could, you set up your own beats and everything?
Yeah, we just program each song, and we could put this is back in floppy disk days, so we had this little storage device, and we could put a set's worth of material on 1 floppy disk. So if somebody had a request, then we had to eject that floppy disk, put in another one, find the song. Dang. And it's like hang on for about 5 minutes while we get your request.
Man, so you couldn't go on some like wild solo or nothing either.
No, it was just
you had to stay right in the frame there.
That was exactly it.
Wow. But so that's when things y'all were actually starting to do well at that point.
Yeah, we were very doing well. We moved out of the house. We had our own place, and we had vehicles and everything. And then we started a side project of all of our own original music, and we called that band the Famous Flames.
The Famous Flames.
Yeah, and that was in homage to James Brown. It used to be way back in the day. It was James Brown and the Famous Flames. So we became the Famous Flames. So I actually have all of the merchandise, and we had a big banner that we hung behind us. We recorded a whole album, and we released it on cassette tape. And I still have a bunch of those.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's what Marcy and I were talking, and I was laughing because, I'm 29, and I can remember when I would have to, if I really liked a song, I'd have to get the blank cassette tapes, and I'd have to try to catch them on the radio and then record it. And then the quality was horrible.
It was horrible. And then sometimes you'd get the DJ that would talk over the intro. It was like, come on, guys.
Man, you're killing me, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's my kids now, they're 2.5, or, they'll be 3 in February.
Yeah.
And they already are like, I want to hear so-and-so song. And I'm like, I already am like, well, back in my day,
exactly.
you couldn't just you couldn't just pull that song up.
And then there was the time when you had to get the pencil.
Yeah,
and you had to
rewind it with the eraser.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they won't even know what a cassette tape is.
No, they won't even know what a CD is.
See, and that like really hurts my heart because I've got the big. Oh man, I don't know. I probably got 150 CDs, and I got them. They're still in my truck. And I used to tell my wife all the time, I said, I'm never going to get rid of my CDs because I'll always listen to these.
Yeah.
And it hurts my heart to say I have not put a CD and listened to it in probably, it's been several years.
Yeah.
So
my youngest daughter got in my car. I had just gotten this particular car that I'm driving now. And she got in and looked at the CD player and went, Dad, what is that? What is that weird thing in your dashboard?
And it was a CD player.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, well, I had not really thought about CDs, but yeah, they won't know what that is.
Nope.
Wow.
Won't have any idea. It'll all be Spotify and whatever else they come up with next,
I don't know where it progresses from here.
I have no idea.
So, I think they're going to put chips in our brains or something.
That's pretty much where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yep. And, here's a funny thing. Hearing aids these days. I don't use a hearing aid, but I know people who do.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing aids these days are all smart hearing aids.
Really?
So, yeah, you can have your phone, your GPS app, play it in your ear. Yeah. And you can have all sorts of things just going on in your head.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had gotten that fancy on that. I thought
super fancy.
Yeah. Wow.
It's amazing. And it kind of made me want to get one.
Yeah. Yeah. And then nobody could say anything because you could just say it's your hearing aid. It's for
exactly
your
right.
hearing impaired.
That's exactly right.
All right. So when did things change? Let's see. Where had y'all had moved out? Well, actually, what did your dad think about this being a preacher?
This is a funny thing because my mom and dad initially were not crazy about the whole thing at all.
Yeah, playing at nightclubs and stuff.
Because we had both dropped out of college to do this.
Yeah.
And college was like a big thing, especially for my mom. And so I said, Mom, I promise I'll go back to college. I'm going to do this right. And so then they were all worried. And I think this is crazy. Here we are 18, 19 years old playing every night in nightclubs, bars.
Yeah.
That was... I would never let my kids do that. But somehow, And so they were not crazy about it. But then we actually started to do pretty well. And, the kind of the class of place we were playing elevated just a little bit.
Higher.
Yeah. And so they actually started coming out and seeing us, a night or two a week. And they enjoyed it. Sometimes they would bring their, a couple with them, stuff like this. So we had like the old folks bench over here. It's like, okay, everybody, straighten up. My dad's here.
They're the preacher man's here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that I always would kind of figure that it would be, the preacher probably doesn't need to go to like the nightclub or the bar there and watch, or people would get an idea about him doing that. But yeah, that's funny. I figured he had some kind of mixed feelings.
That's what they criticized Jesus for.
Yeah.
Hanging out with prostitutes and drunks.
Yep.
So maybe we were in the right place.
Maybe. Yeah, you were put there. Well, your path, I'm a believer that there is no like wasted path.
Oh, true. Very true.
On where you get.
That is so true.
I feel like everything develops you along the way.
It does.
To where you're getting. Yep. And, I think one thing that I like, you were one, it took a lot of courage to say, you know what, all right, we're going to drop out of college and do this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would not have the courage to be that driven towards their dream. So, what did you have, like a passion? Could you feel it in your chest? What is it that pulled at you?
It was, and I will say that there's a fine line between courage and stupidity. I'm not sure which side we were on.
Yeah.
But we just had one thing in our minds, and we nothing else really just mattered.
Yeah.
And so we just, it's like, well, if we get a regular day job and do this on the side, this is always going to be on the side.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the burn the ships mentality that we talked about. If you don't cut off your escape route, then you're going to escape at some point.
Oh yeah.
And so we just did it. We just, and things were moving forward. Everything was going good, and then everything took a giant turn in 1988 when I came home to a message on my answering machine that said my brother had been in a car accident and that he was not expected to make it.
Dang. Yeah.
And so we spent the next 5 days at the hospital, and he didn't make it. He was pretty much brain dead from the time they brought him in. So that changed everything.
Yeah.
Now here I was, like, what do I do now?
Yeah, the whole thing was y'all's band.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was it.
You and him together.
Yep.
How old were you at that point?
I was, let me think about this. I was 25.
Where were you living at?
We were in Puyallup, Washington, the town basically where I grew up. We lived for 7 years of my life in Oregon, and then we moved when I was in third grade.
Yeah.
And so that was like our hometown.
Okay. So did you ever have any moment where you were like, well, that's it?
Yep. Instantly.
Instantly?
Yeah. It's like, well, it must be over then.
Yeah.
And I was, obviously freaked out and devastated and, thrown into a very big state of depression and really didn't know what I was going to do next.
Yeah.
And, of course, I had no education or job skills. So
yeah.
What do I do now, And so I just decided to reinvent myself. And I still had contact with all the booking agents that we used and a lot of the nightclubs that we used to play. And so I just made myself into a single act.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 weeks later, I was out playing.
So did you record the guitar and everything at that point? How'd you do that?
I just kind of reworked the sound to where I did add some guitar parts to some of the songs that we were doing. And then I focused more on the, kind of keyboard oriented pop music of the day. And I just did it that way.
Thanks. So I didn't realize you were completely solo then. You did not have any band members.
Nope. Just
Dang.
me.
Wow.
For about 2.5 years. And then I actually felt like I could probably open some doors with another musician. So I hired somebody who played guitar and fiddle and a couple of other things. And we were together for a little over a year. And then the weirdest thing happened. Two things. Actually, a guy that I went to school with, his name is Gary Thomas. Now, Gary Thomas is actually quite well known now for his books on marriage and relationships and things like that. He has a book called Sacred Marriage, and he also has one called Sacred Paths. They're both excellent books. He's now down in Dallas, but at the time, I heard that he had gone to Washington, D.C. to be a lobbyist, and that he was doing extremely well. And it just kind of went, wow, I'm still here. I'd never wanted to just be here.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, birthed this, urgency in me. And then I had a night off. And so I wandered into a nightclub that I played regularly. And one of my friends was playing there. The guy kind of played the same circuit, did the same thing I did, keyboards, and, his wife sang with him and everything. And so I wandered in, I sat down, and all of a sudden it was like I was seeing something through new eyes. I was seeing me in 20 years because this guy was about, 45, 50 years old.
And that's probably not where you wanted to be.
Oh, my Lord. It put this, so now it was the urgency on one side and fear on the other.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so I just started making plans, and I set a date for...
That's a blessing in disguise, though, I feel like.
Yes, it is.
Because
Absolutely.
that's, what is it? People forever kind of just choose what I consider the easy path.
Right.
And
least resistance.
Yeah. And so you getting to see what you could see as, wow, that could be me in 20 years, not any further along than where I am right now.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah. And so that's, like I said, that was probably a God sign that you saw that.
There's no doubt about it. And, you and I have talked about different God moments in our life where, there's just like an intervention of the supernatural.
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of them. And I just knew I had to do something. And so I picked a day, May 8th, or actually it was May 1st when I was going to leave. And I packed up everything and took 7 days to drive to Nashville, Tennessee. And that's when I got there on May the 8th, 1991.
Why? So Nashville, I guess, because did you know you wanted to get into the country scene? Is that what sent you to Nashville?
No, actually, first of all, I could have gone to L.A. or New York.
Yeah.
But
you just knew they were so weird. You'd rather go to Tennessee.
Very, very weird. Plus, the cost of living in both those places is so high.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
You got to live with 7 other people in the same house in order to make it. And I just, plus Nashville is the songwriter capital of the U.S. So
it was that way even in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I moved there in 91. And that was right at the resurgence of Randy Travis and kind of the real country kind of thing. Garth Brooks was just barely a name.
Yeah.
And so songwriting was becoming a huge deal. And there were a lot of executives and publishers that were opening offices in Nashville and moving there. And so I felt like there was going to be the greatest opportunity for me. Plus, I knew I could just go into town, find a job, and live until I could get my bearings, which is exactly what I did. I got a job delivering furniture.
Well, that's a lot of times it's funny to hear the kind of the people that go into the entertainment industry. They have the moving jobs or the waiters or waitress. Weren't you a waiter at one point?
Yeah. I did. Even when I began to work steady in the music business, usually the months of January and February are very slow.
Yeah.
And so you're not doing shows, so you're not getting paid. So they call it the January jitters in Nashville.
So you have to get a job just to kind of make it.
You got to do something. You get unemployment, but then you have to. You just have to find a way through January and February.
Yeah.
One year I took off and did a cruise ship for a month in out of Florida, but then I found this table waiting thing, and I turned out to be pretty good at it. So I did that off and on for several years.
Now did that ever hinder you? Did that give you any? It didn't give you any because I know Bruce Willis. I've heard him talk or listened to him talk about when he got into it's either Die Hard or The Fifth Element. He had not really blown up yet, and he was a bartender in New York City,
right,
making a ton of money,
doing well.
Like he was doing very good,
yes.
And he would go and audition for parts, and he never got them, and he never cared because he was making big bucks doing this.
Right.
And a lot of times, I think he said he was making more doing that than what he was going to get paid in the movie, and. He finally said he realized that he was just relying on that comfort and not really going after it. Kind of the same thing we've been talking about. And so he quit his job and was like, all right, if I don't get this next gig, I'm not going to have enough money to pay my bills. I'm not going to have enough money to eat and all this stuff. And it was for Die Hard or The Fifth Element. It was one of the big movies, and he got the part. And so that's what one of the things that I find really fascinating with what you did is how multiple times throughout it you were just that driven towards it. You never let the fear stop you from going. I mean, because not only leaving college and then doing it, but then moving, 1,000 miles away or whatever to Tennessee.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So that is really cool to me. And did you encounter much pushback? Did you have many people trying to stop you or much flack for coming out?
I really don't remember. And this is a good example of what you're saying about how nothing in your path is wasted.
Yeah.
Because, you're thinking, okay, my brother died. I'm still, I'm still not over that.
Yeah.
I'm still just very conflicted about that. And I've been working now for 3.5 years. I've got a stable foundation. I can make it. Everything's okay. But there's a restlessness inside of me. Now I've got this urgency. And so it wouldn't have mattered at that point what anybody would have said to me.
Yeah.
Because there was also that thing of, I think I just need to get out of this town.
Yeah.
To get out of this space, because here's the center of all of this negativity and all this struggle and all this getting back up on my feet again. If I'm going to have to struggle this hard, I might as well struggle in a place where something good might happen.
Yeah. 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 Because I feel like where you were is probably not going to be Randy Travis and them aren't going to be there starting up.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And here's the other part of it, too, because there is a lesson to be learned. I didn't know it at the time, but I've seen it as I look back. But it's one thing to be willing, to be driven to just go for it.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is I had worked and prepared myself.
Yeah.
All of those years in nightclubs, all those years, learning songs and charting songs and programming things. When I got there, I felt like no one was going to outwork me.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of guys talk about that. It's being prepared for the moment.
Yeah.
Because you never know when that opportunity might present itself, but you don't want it to present itself and you've been dreaming about the moment but not actually working towards the moment.
I've had some of those experiences too, and they will teach you very fast.
Yeah, I'm sure it's humbling.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, that's something that, and I think a lot of people get deterred way too easily because the minute that there is some resistance that they meet, it's like, you know what, I'm just not meant to do this.
Yeah. And
I think they throw the towel in way too easy. And I'll tell you, like, just even doing my podcast, I'm not like Joe Rogan level audience, millions of people. But I enjoy doing it. And I mean, some of the people that I've gotten to talk to, New York Times best-selling authors, some of those are what I consider like, how did I get this guy on here? And that's whenever I think maybe I'm on the right path, because I feel like the big man upstairs is opening these doors.
Yeah.
Because I've had guys on that other podcast people that have a lot bigger audience than me cannot get on their podcast. And I'm just like, that's got to be a God thing.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a fulfillment that you get whenever you finally feel like you're moving in the right direction.
Yep.
So, I mean, you probably would get some sense of fulfillment and happiness, like knowing that, you're putting your nose to the grindstone and going after it.
Oh, yeah. And when that opportunity did come, it was like one of these magical moments, because I'd been working for 6 weeks delivering furniture. And now, usually, if you move to Nashville or New York or LA, 6 months, 6 years, this was like it was dropped in my lap.
Yeah.
And so I did this audition, I got the gig, everything, and I literally went from the night before setting up a dinette set in somebody's home, and that night I was laying in a bunk on a tour bus playing for a guy named Mike Reed, opening up for Don Williams.
Yeah. In
Kansas City. And I just remember laying in my bunk and looking at the ceiling going, God, this is really cool. Like, if I never do this again, at least I got to do it once.
Yeah. A moment you never forget.
That's right.
Now, so when you move to Nashville, what do you do? Do you do you give out resumes? How does that work?
No, man, you just talk to people. Yeah, there's a handful of places that people go to be seen.
Yeah.
And now there's Lower Broad, where all the honky tonks are, Tootsie's and Robert's Western World and all that kind of stuff. And so you can you can go down there, and if you're a hot musician, you can make friends with the band, and they'll bring you up to sit in, and they'll just let you go and show your stuff, and word gets around. Yeah. Nashville's still small enough to where word gets around.
Yeah.
There's also songwriters nights. So if you're a songwriter and everything, there's like an open mic where you just sign up when you get there, and you get to play a few songs. And if they're really good, word gets around.
They still do that?
They do.
Well, that's neat.
They do it every week. And, of course, then there's the famous Bluebird Cafe, which they have an open mic on Monday, I think it is. And then the rest of it is all, booked with actually successful songwriters. but you even as you make the rounds, you get introduced to people, and you just kind of, everybody begins to know who's who and what's what. And then they'll say, hey, I'm doing a demo, would you come down and play keyboards for me? And it's like, you're going to make $40, but all you have to do is show up and actually be awesome.
Yeah, and word will get around.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that was the same whenever I was in the little Memphis local film scene.
Yeah, exactly.
I did a lot of non-paid gigs.
Yep.
And it's always like you'll get the credit. You'll get like you can put on your resume that you were in this. And it was usually terrible, horrible things. Like, but I mean, it'd be like the lowest crappy budget film, and so I mean, but like I said, it was exposure, and it was still, you were actually getting to hone your craft.
Yes.
So I mean, that's how, I guess, again, none of those were wasted things, because then you said 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks. And it's kind of a long story about how this all came about. But when I moved to Nashville, I had one phone number of one guy. This guy happened to be a songwriter who was under contract with Sony Records at the time and was putting out his own solo album. And the guy that played keyboards on his solo album and produced it was a guy that was an idol of mine. Gary Smith was his name.
Really?
Yeah, super good piano player. And so he said, "Would you like to meet Gary Smith?" And I said, "I'd love to." So I went backstage with this showcase they did. I met Gary Smith, and he asked me why I was in town. I said, why I was. And he said, "Well, hey," he said that, there's not really a lot of good keyboard players in Nashville right now. So why don't you send me something? If you got a recording or something. I had an audio and a video of me playing. And he said, if there's something that opens up, I'll pass it on. And so he did. And a week later, I got a call, and I got the call to go to this audition. And I just ditched my job for the day and went to this audition, and it worked out. And then I spent the next 12 years playing for really some of the top artists in Nashville.
How did the first gig, I mean, was your nerves? Were you
Shot.
I was gonna say,
Shot.
were you amped?
It was kind of one of those deals where it's like, don't do anything that stands out. You
don't want to stand out.
No mistakes.
Yeah.
You just want to be part of the band. You want to. It's the star that needs to shine. Don't do anything crazy.
Yeah.
And no risks. You just get through it, and that's exactly what it. You basically, the whole idea is you get up there and you nail what you practiced.
Yeah. Now, was it you that told me that the album band is different from a touring band?
Yeah. There's a group, several groups of players in Nashville that are part of what they would call the A-Team. A-Team studio session players. They don't travel anymore. They just do studio sessions all day long.
With various artists, I guess?
Everybody. Yeah. It's the same guys playing all the records. And that's sort of a point of contention with a lot of the live musicians and that's another thing. And I never really wanted to do that, because as a studio musician, you have to promote yourself, you have to network yourself, you have to hustle all the time. And then you're doing a 10 o'clock session, a 2 o'clock session, and a 6 o'clock session. If you're successful, and you're in that much in demand.
Dang, that's a pretty long day there.
10 or 2 and a 6. That's like name dropping in Nashville. It's like, oh yeah, man, I'm busy tomorrow. I got a 10, a 2, and a 6. So I'm not. And yeah, if you get recognized into that, you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just playing your instrument. Yeah.
And absolutely. You never have to go anywhere.
No, you just, and here's the cool thing. I learned about this thing called cartage. They have these giant rehearsal studios, but they also have storage lockers. And they have cartage service. And you can, as a union member, you can check the cartage box, and the person who hired you has to pay your cartage fee. And what they do is that you tell them what rig you want at what studio, and they have it ready at 9:30, all set up and ready to go.
Like whatever instrument?
Mm-hmm. Whatever. If you're a drummer, it's like, I want my my Thomas set with the.
Really? So you get to pick what you wanted all the time?
And they set it all up for you just like you want it.
I assumed you had to take your own.
Nope. I mean, I did.
Yeah.
I wasn't to that level, but the big dudes, man, they never have to touch a thing. They walk in at 9:55 and they sit down and start playing.
So then, when I see the old videos of like Kurt Cobain and them in Nirvana busting the guitars, that's probably not even his guitar.
No.
Some cartage guys in the back, like,
that's
man,
exactly
I just brought that guitar out here.
Exactly right. It's not the real thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That kind of takes away from with the effect.
I know. But, we all have our illusions shattered from time to time.
Exactly. All right. So Now you played with, like I said, several big names.
Yeah.
Because I've watched the video. I showed Marcy the one. It was with Jody Messina.
Yeah.
What is the name of that song?
Bye Bye.
Bye Bye.
Yeah.
You're in the purple suit.
Yep.
Playing the piano in the street.
Yep.
That's what I think even Levi and Emerson, I've showed them. They're like, "There's Brother Peter."
Yeah. And I did another video with Mike Reed, the guy who I started with. He had a number one song called "Walk on Faith" when I joined, and then he did another. His next single was a song called "Keep on Walking," which didn't do nearly as well. But they made a video, and I'm in the video, and that was back in the mullet days. So
did you have a mullet?
I did.
All right, I'll have to check that one. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, you have to search for it because it wasn't a super popular song. But if you look,
and it's called "Keep on Walking."
Keep on Walking. Yeah,
check it.
Interesting thing about the song "Keep on Walking," Mike wrote that song, and he is a world-class songwriter. He never had to make an album in his whole life.
Yeah.
He's got millions of dollars
from songwriting.
From songwriting, yeah. Really? He wrote almost all of Ronnie Millsap's hits.
Really?
He wrote songs for.
Was that the Stranger
in My House? Yeah.
He wrote that one.
Yeah, he sure did.
Wow, man.
Yeah, that came out of a fight he had with his wife. He tells the story. And
did he consider her a stranger in his house?
No, she yelled at him and said, "Living with you is like living with a stranger in my house." And he stopped and kind of went, "Hey, that's pretty good."
That's good.
Yeah. So he wrote songs for Alabama and Don Williams, and he wrote the song "I Can't Make You Love Me" for Bonnie Raitt.
Really?
Yeah,
man,
wrote that one.
Wow.
So he wrote this song, "Keep on Walking," with a woman out of L.A. Her name was Amanda McBroom. And the cool thing about Amanda McBroom is she's only had one other song recorded in her entire career as a songwriter.
Yeah.
And the song was called "The Rose."
The Rose.
Yeah. And it was a they made a movie, Bette Midler, "The Rose."
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
that's the only other song.
She only needed one, So, yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So they wrote the movie about that song?
It was a story that already existed, but then they paired it with that song, which went so perfectly with the story, and they titled it the same title as the song.
Dang.
Yeah.
Man, you need to write a song and get a movie made about it.
I know. I'm trying to think, what could I do,
Now, you did do some songwriting because you got I know one Dove Award.
One Dove Award and one Christian Country Music Association Song of the Year Award. Yeah. So it was a song that I wrote with another guy. There was a group called Mid-South, and they were on Warner Alliance, which was the Christian division of Warner Brothers Records. And it is an amazing story how that song ever found its way. But they released it as a single, and it spent a whole bunch of weeks at number one on the Christian country charts, which is kind of a small genre. But it somehow found its way to the desk of the guy at Warner Brothers in Burbank, California. It's like all the projects that come out. If you're an executive, you're going to get all the projects across your desk.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to listen to hardly any of them.
Yeah.
He happened to pick this one up, and they go, I wonder what this one's like. He happened to put it on. He happened to pick track number 5, which was the song that we wrote called "Without You, I Haven't Got a Prayer." And he said, "This is a great song." And he called Nashville and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I release this to pop radio, secular pop radio?" And they said, "Well, of course." And so he did, and it went to number 23 on the adult contemporary charts.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. We were right in between Gloria Estefan and Bon Jovi.
Wow.
For 1 week.
Dang, what year was that?
95.
95.
Yeah.
Dang, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that y'all went into the secular hits like that.
That's really what kind of made it blow up a little bit.
Yeah.
But the coolest part of it was I was traveling with Rhonda Vincent at the time, and we were going to Switzerland, which is cool in and of itself.
Yeah.
So get on this plane, and when you do international flights, back in the day, the paid music service that you can get the headphones for, that was all free on international flights.
Yeah.
And so I got on the plane, I put my headphones in, I turned, and I tried out the different channels, and I tried the adult contemporary channel, and that song was playing.
No, but that was kind of a surreal moment.
It was just like, okay, I've arrived.
Yeah.
I've done everything I want to do. Yeah.
Man.
So I had to stand up and tell everybody, hey, go here, listen. I wrote that song.
Man, that would be a really surreal moment, though.
It's a rush, man.
That would.
It was really cool.
That's man, yeah, and so all right, so you did that.
Yeah.
Now, when did you meet Miss Karen?
97.
97.
Yeah. We met Rhonda Vincent's brother, Darren Vincent, who now has a super huge act called Daly and Vincent.
Okay. Yeah.
They're really big in country and bluegrass world, and he's a super awesome guy. He invited me to come to his little tiny Methodist church, Keltonburg United Methodist Church, near Smithville, Tennessee, and do a gospel singing.
Yeah.
And then he said, "And I've got somebody I want you to meet." It was a total setup, like from day one. So that's another kind of long and involved story. But I met her. I mean, it was like one of those, instant
this
kind
is
of
the one.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I called her up, invited her out. We went out, had a wonderful time. Called her back the next week. She didn't answer my phone call. Called her back again. Finally, she answered after 4 or 5 times and said, I just don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think
this guy's not going to leave me alone.
Exactly. And so, I need some stability in my life, and you don't have a stable kind of existence. You're traveling a lot and all this stuff. And, she had 2 young children, 3 and 4 years old. And so I said, okay, all right, I get it. And so for a year, Darren Vincent, my buddy, and she was teaching school with his wife.
Yeah.
He would come and visit the school, and he would say, I don't know if you know what a mistake you just made. He'd just go, he wear her
He's
out.
the ultimate wingman, it sounds like.
He is like the best wingman ever. And he did that for a year. Almost every time he'd see her. And, like she'd be over at their house having that Sunday lunch or something, and they'd be having all kinds of conversation. At the end, he'd just go, you did the dumbest thing. And he would just keep on. And so it was funny because one night, it's a Saturday, and she's over at Darren and Julie's house, and she's going on. She says, "Will you please finally just stop all this?"
Yeah.
He said, "No, you need to." And she said, "Well, he's not going to call me because I turned him down." And he said, "You need to call him." And she said, "I'm not calling him." "Yes, you need to call him." And so she got home on a Saturday night, and she said, "Okay, I'm going to do it one time." She had to promise him that she would. And so she prayed. She said, "Okay, God, if this is supposed to happen, let him pick up the phone, although I know he won't because it's Saturday night and he's probably working."
Yeah.
I was off that night. And I picked up the phone.
Which is probably not common for you on a Saturday night.
No, it never happens.
Yeah.
And all I heard was silence on the other end. Because
she was like, "God, why? Please,
yeah,
God, why?"
So we got together, and we were married 4 months later.
Really, 4 months?
4 months.
Well, like I said, so you just knew.
Yeah, and it took me a while to convince her so she would know.
Yeah. But again, though, you were very persistent with your chasing your dreams, and then you like laser in on what you want and you go after it.
Right. And with the help of a few little God moments along the way.
Exactly.
That was kind of a setup, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not many. Like I said, that dude was the ultimate wingman because not many buddies are going to keep on and on. Like eventually they're going to be like, all right, whatever.
I know. And he just had it in his mind that he knew we should be together. And he is just, naive enough to just believe
keep
that.
On, yeah.
Yeah. And
so now did you really like, when you met her, did you have a moment where you're like, that is the girl that I'm going to marry?
Yeah, I really did.
All right, because some people think I'm crazy, but like I had known Marcy, man, we started going to church together when we were like 4 or 5. Yeah. Known her all my life. And I had my youth pastor, one of them was like, "You and Marcy are going to get married." And I was like, "Nah," I was like, she's a really good girl now. And I like, no, we're just friends and all that. And all the time she'd be like, "Y'all are going to get married." And by the time I became a teenager and got a little older, we always got along great, but I just never was like, nah, she's just almost, I was almost like, she's just too good of a person for me. And then one of my buddies was like, "You and Marcy should date." And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, man, if I date her, I'm going to marry her. Like, I just had that, it was
just
something
happened.
in there. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't there before. Now it is.
Yep. And so that's when I finally was like, if I date her, she'll be the last one I date. And so it's funny how that.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
It's the way it turned out.
So now it was hard when y'all got married because you were still traveling a lot.
Yeah.
So because you had a moment there where you actually just pretty much took up waiting, didn't you? And then you did that.
Well, this is the way that happened is because Karen and the kids moved to my house in Nashville. We all lived there. She was working as a teacher at Mount Juliet Christian Academy, and they were going to preschool and kindergarten and everything. And then she got pregnant with Kristen, our next daughter in line. And I was working with Jody, and we were like tearing up the road. And it was the middle of the summer, and there was a big stretch of work coming up. And I basically said to her, I really need to be home for the birth of my child. Yeah. And I realized at that point, with the dynamic of everything that was going on, that there was a possibility that was not going to work.
Really?
Yeah. Just, the whole business side of everything and management and all this stuff is like, here we are right in the middle of summer. Now is not a good time to take off. And I mean, she wasn't due till September, but I saw the schedule and it was intense.
Yeah.
And so I just made up my mind that this was the time. We had a 2-week break in the middle of June. And so I said, okay, I'm giving my notice now. And she said, well, this is not a very good time. And I said, well, actually, it's a very good time because the work that's coming up. And now we have, and I help you. We've got 2 weeks to get somebody and work them in. So, I went to full-time waiting tables.
Was she mad at you?
I think she was upset with me for a while. We were really good friends, and we still are to this day. I haven't talked to her in several years now, but because I've moved all over the place. But no, we had a lot of good conversations, and we had a really good time. And so, and of course, she didn't want the inconvenience of hiring somebody. I knew the show, I knew the gig, and everything. So, I quit and waited tables for about 9 months. And then I went back to work for a guy named Chad Brock after that and worked with him for a year.
And he had a pretty good hit, too.
He had 2 right in a row. Ordinary Life, which was his first big one, and then he had a song called Yes.
Is that the She Said Yes?
She Said Yes.
All right, yeah. I was remembering you had told me about Chad, because, see, Marcy is the one, Prime Country is all she listens to.
Oh, okay.
And, I like some of the Prime. I like even the older stuff a lot, like Charlie Daniels, and I hate that we lost old Charlie this year. But,
man,
and you met him.
We did a whole tour with him.
Yeah.
When I was with Jody, we did the Fruit of the Loom Country Comfort Tour.
All right.
Yeah.
Did they give you underwear?
No, they did not. They gave the artists underwear, but they didn't give us.
Well,
I know. But that was with. It was Charlie Daniels, Travis Tritt, and Hank Williams Jr.
Oh, man, I didn't realize the dinosaur was there.
Yeah, he was.
What was that like?
It was a trip. It was a trip. The biggest part of the trip was trying to get into Canada because we were doing this whole big Canadian swing.
Yeah.
And so they heard Hank Jr. was coming, and we didn't get in. Charlie was smart. He got up early, and they got their buses through customs first because he knew, and this is what they did. Hank Jr.'s coming. We're going to tear this bus apart.
Looking for some drugs.
I mean, they had the dogs. They had everything. And it just took like almost 4 hours by the time they got everything put back together.
Did he not have any drugs in there?
No, did not.
Man.
Did not. Nothing illegal.
That was kind of rare.
I think he had it shipped ahead. I'm pretty sure he did. So it was. What
was
fun.
Charlie like?
Charlie was, I mean to tell you, the best man you've ever met.
Yeah.
He was so good to his people. All of his people have been with him from day one. And the Taz, the keyboard player, we lost him just very recently.
Really?
Just a few months ago. Yeah. But We hung out. I didn't hang out with Charlie, although he invited us up to his bus, to his dressing room all the time. And, he's a great Christian man and a man's man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to tell you the way it is. But his band members are so cool. We hung out. We had a day off in San Diego. Which, if you ever have a day off in San Diego, that's just a perfect place.
It sounds like it.
It's amazing. And so we hung out the whole day. At the end of the day, the bass player and the keyboard player were kind of hanging out with us, and they like paid for all our meals and everything because they knew we were struggling.
Yeah.
And so Charlie's top to bottom. It was one of the best organizations I ever came into contact with.
I know you had told me that you think that how good of a genuine and good person he was probably helped the longevity of his career.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. He shouldn't have been doing what he was doing at the age that he was doing it. I'm serious. And he played right up until the end.
Oh, yeah.
Just relentless.
What happened to country?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what happened to it. I think they discovered Apple loops.
Yeah.
And it's like everything's got to have a loop on it now.
Yeah.
It kind of was starting when I left the business in 2001, 2002. It was kind of going that direction with and Shania Twain was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And she her producer was Mutt Lange, who she was married to, and he produced Def Leppard and all these other and so he was all about using all the technology, and people bought it, and so everybody went that way. And then when it came time for the influences of rap and hip hop to come into pop music, which I'm a big fan of, but it came into it's like, well, we got to put this in country music too. And
so that's when we had that horrible song Over and Over Again with Tim McGraw and Nelly. Do you remember that song?
Yes, I do. Please.
Whoever wrote that song, that should give, if there's a struggling songwriter out there right now, he ought to take some comfort in knowing that they wrote a song that literally just says over and over again.
And there's certain songs that I try to forget, so thank you for bringing that back up again. But in my day, it was Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh yeah, that is and he's come back.
Yeah. Oh,
that the rap song "Old Town Road."
Yes, exactly.
But now he's been riding off of Miley Cyrus's shirt tail forever. And man, she went nuts. That's what it's just. So actually, what we can trace the downfall back to is Canadians, is what
pretty
you're
much.
saying, because Shania Twain.
Canadians got involved and everything went crazy.
They just ruined it.
Exactly right. I was at a show one time at the Hollywood Bowl. We were in LA doing the ACM Awards.
Okay.
And so we only had like 2 or 3 nights where we had to be busy. And so one of my buddies from another band said, "Hey, Shania Twain's playing the Hollywood Bowl. Why don't you come down? I know the video guy, and we'll just sit backstage." And it's like, okay, let's do it. So we went there. And we sat backstage, but the interesting thing about it was the video guy had several different audio feeds. And one audio feed was what was going out live. It was actually being played by the people.
Yeah.
And the other was the tracks that were enhancing the whole thing.
Really?
And so there were, and so she had 3 fiddle players. She had this world-class drummer who was amazing. She had, a couple of guitar players, bass player, 2-3 keyboard players. And me and my buddy figured out that the only ones that were really playing were one of the guitar players and one of the keyboard players. So the fiddle players were not playing anything.
So they just didn't have it wasn't turned on or something?
No, it's just they were just making the motions.
Really?
Yeah. The world-class drummer who was amazing, you never heard anything he did.
So what was it? I mean, they're just doing air drumming?
He's playing. No, he's playing, but nobody can hear it.
Why? Just to clean it up more or something?
To make it sound very produced. And they had it to where she probably sang about 50% of her stuff.
She was lip singing the rest, I guess?
Yep. Just singing quietly into a microphone.
Yeah.
And part of that was, and people do that a lot today. And part of it is understandable because if you're going to go out and do 200 shows in a year, there'll be some times when your voice is not up to par.
Yeah.
And so this is a way to kind of, ensure that you can still do a show.
I can see that because I know like the band Slipknot, or metal band, and that Corey, I can't remember his last name, but that sings for them. He had to have like surgery on his throat because he like blew his voice out or something. So,
Surprise!
Yeah. So I can see that. And you do hear about people getting like, people bust them lip singing or something like, but yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of do see somewhat of maybe a resurgence of the older style coming back. Like, I like Jamie Johnson a lot when he was kind of coming out, and there's a bunch now. People are kind of getting, I think we're kind of getting tired of the overly produced stuff and getting back to that kind of gritty country and things like that. I think that's kind of making a comeback.
I agree, and I hope it does. There's a place for highly produced music. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so the disco thing was real, and it was very highly produced, and I don't have any problem with it at all. I think it has its place. But when you take an inherently organic form of music, the blues, country, things like that, and then you overproduce them and slick them up, it just takes away the authenticity of it. It's soul music is what it is, and so I like to hear really good players play their instruments.
And that's like, I like to listen to the lyrics of them a lot, and that's what I like about YouTube. I have found a lot of really good country guys that are like nobody's ever heard of. I'll just go down a YouTube rabbit hole.
It's amazing. There's some bad stuff out there.
There's some that are terrible, but there's some really interesting ones on there that I like a lot. But like Luke Bryan, and he hunts and stuff. I would probably like him as a person. But I hate his music. Man, he is like, it like was offensive to me as a farmer when he came out with that song about rain, where it's like rain makes corn makes whiskey makes my baby feel a little frisky, if I remember right. And I'm like, who writes this? This is like something that I'd write in middle school or something. Like, so that I've always been like, and then Taylor Swift, whenever she was singing, I'm glad she finally went their way of pop.
I agree. Because that's who she was from the beginning.
She was never a country singer. And all right, so now you get back on the road, you've done that. Now, how did you start to turn to ministry? When did that come into? Well, hold on. So did you go back to college like you told your mom?
No, well, eventually.
Right.
Not yet. So Karen and I had been married a few years, and we were kind of at a crossroads. I was working with Chad Brock. Chad is a really good guy, but I was not having a good time. This was not a forward step in my career. And so it was kind of just to pay the bills and all that. So I was a little bit at a dead end, and my pastor, we were attending a church, Trinity First Church of God in Nashville, Tennessee. And David Kitchen is his name, and he showed up on my doorstep at 1:00 in the afternoon. And he said, I invited him in, and he said, we've been having trouble with the music ministry at our church, and I've been praying about it, and I believe that you're our next music minister full time. And I said, no, that's crazy. That was well, I just started with Chad, and it's like you got to play at least a year with somebody. You don't just take the job and then back out. It's an inconvenience, because then they got to go through the audition process all over again. So he said, okay. And then we talked for a while, and he left. And so I had a really terrible year. It was not fun. And almost exactly a year later, he showed up on my doorstep again, said the exact same thing. And by that time, it was just like I was ready. I'd given up kind of just on the grind of everything. And so just boom, that second, the year had ended. And so it was a natural time. We were going to have a couple months off. So I just said, thank you all. Thank you, Chad. Been a great year. I'm not coming back. So I went to work at the church, and Kristen was a year old, maybe a year and a half. And so I took her to work with me every day.
Yeah.
The nursery was right across the hall from my office. So I would put her in there, and she would play and, put her down for a nap. And that's when I get my work done. And so we did that for 2.5 years, like that, and had a wonderful time.
Now that's not, all right, and that brings up a good point too, because things shift. I'm not going to say dreams, like, because you didn't quit the dream. I feel like, did you feel at that point that it had run its route that you wanted it to, and then it was time to pivot?
I felt like I was ready for a change in a lot of ways, probably. And I felt like, I was growing and maturing in my faith as well at the same time. And so it didn't seem like I was quitting the music business or anything like that. I was still in Nashville, still doing things. But the weird thing was, as I would be working at the church, the secretary, her name was Nancy, and we'd have a conversation just in the hallway about scripture and biblical things and everything. And she would always say, "Have you ever considered preaching?" And I said, "No, I don't want anything to do with that."
Never.
Yeah. And then, out of the blue, somebody else would say the same thing. And then it would be like, 15 people in a week, and it's like, I am not a gifted speaker, And so I went into my pastor's office and I said, what gives here? What is the deal with this? And he said, well, it's either people just being, admiring you or complimenting you, or it's a call from God. Yeah. And so here's what you do: turn around and run from it as fast and hard as you can. And if you're successful, then that means it was not a call from God. But if you are not successful, that means that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And so I did. I tried to avoid anything that would even resemble that. Still did my, Bible studying and, small groups and stuff, but I didn't want anything to do with it. And all of a sudden, it was just a magnet, just like a pull. I couldn't, and I really was hungry for it, So I started in the ordination program that they had through their denomination. And then I got a call one day from Karen's old pastor in Smithville of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Smithville. Yeah. And he said, we've got an approval to hire an associate to handle youth and music. Would you be interested? And I said, no, I would not. So
you're the Leonardo DiCaprio. He says no to every movie, and that your story. You're basically, Leo needs to play you.
Maybe that's the one.
That is.
Yes, he's gotten a little age on him. He could probably pull it off now. Yep. So anyway, so he called back and said, "Hey, well, will you just meet with me in Nashville and talk for a minute?" And so we ended up talking for 3 hours, and we ended up moving out there. Yeah. And that's when I actually started my official education program through Memphis Theological Seminary.
So how old were you at that point?
Oh, my gosh. Let me think about this for a second. I was getting close to 40.
But so essentially 20 years later, you kept your promise to your mother.
That's right.
There you go.
I did.
She might have thought you would have done it sooner, but you still held your word. She hoped I would
do it sooner. But here's the funny thing about it. It was a 3-year program. Yeah. I would drive to McKenzie, Tennessee, and for 15 days I would take classes, and then I would write the papers and do all the work throughout the year. Yeah. It's a 3-year program. The second year that I was there, the people at Bethel College asked me to move there.
Well, that's in McKenzie, isn't it?
In McKenzie, and help start a new performing arts program that they were starting. Yeah. And I told them no. And so that's a long and involved story, but we ended up picking up the family and moving to McKenzie. Yeah. And I worked there, and the work was so involving and so exhausting that it took me 9 years to finish the 3-year program. Man. Yeah. Finally graduated and was ordained in 2010. Yeah. And some of those classes I was required, if you don't get your work in a certain amount of time, you got to retake the class. I think I retook 7 classes. Really? Pretty sure. Yeah. So I know this stuff really well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you're like an expert in it now.
Yes, exactly.
Dang. All right. So then the Renaissance Band, you started that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so at this time, though, were you like, I'm going to be a preacher?
No.
Okay, so you still didn't think
I was studying for ordained ministry, but I didn't think that I was going to be like, a pastor somewhere.
Were you figuring still have some of the music, like do music leading or something like that kind of thing?
Yeah, and, I really honestly thought after 10 years, I was at Bethel for 12 years, and after 10 years, I thought, well, I'll just probably retire here.
Yeah.
Because now I'm getting close to 50, you know? And so this is probably the end of the road for me. So I'll find all kinds of ways to help the church in ministry as an ordained minister. I can go, sub at churches. I can do revivals. I can do evangelistic work. I can, all this stuff. And then it just, it's kind of like you feel like you're being squeezed out or birthed into something else. It just really, it was such a heavy feeling that it was going to be time to leave. Yeah. I transitioned from being the director of the Renaissance program into being the director of church relations for the college. And it just was not a good fit for me. Yeah. I enjoyed the work very, very much, but really suffered from lack of support from leadership and some other things. And so I was just banging my head against the wall the whole time. Yeah. And so in the meantime, I was doing everything I could to help the church, and I kept filling in at different places that were in between pastors, and then going and doing revivals and everything. And all of a sudden, churches started saying, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to be considered to be our senior pastor?" And I told them no. I just did. There was Glasgow, Kentucky. I went and met with them, and on the drive home, I said, no, I just don't think I'm ready for this yet. Yeah. And so, but so many of them started to come together. It was kind of like when the Preachin thing, it's like I can't ignore this any longer. I've got to explore it. Yeah. And so that's kind of that's how we ended up at Holly Grove, was through this whole process of just one God moment after another, just being moved forward.
Isn't it funny how many of those moments it takes before we finally listen?
Sometimes it only takes one, but most of the time, for us hard-headed people, it takes multiple.
That's it takes me a bunch, and then it's like I rapidly forget.
Yes.
And that's, it reminds me of when I was a kid growing up, you'd hear the story of the Israelites. As a kid, I always be like, gosh, these people are stupid.
How stupid can you be?
And then you actually get old enough to understand, and it's like, wow, he's talking about us as the Israelites. And I'm like, man, what does that say? But it's true.
It says the same thing, that we continually follow that pattern of getting distracted. Yep. And then some sort of dramatic moment has to happen in our life to get us back riveted on what our calling is and what our purpose is. Yeah. It's true.
And I think a lot of people never unearth their calling.
It's true.
Because it's, nowadays, and I was a machinist for years, and I've said it a lot of times on here, it's a great job. It's a good job for people to do, and we need machinists.
Yes, we do.
They're good jobs, but it just was not the job for me. Yeah. And I think one thing, as I'd get to know people that were working there, we'd become friends, and I'd be like, so did you always want to be a machinist? And 98% of them were like, no.
No, never did.
No. I mean, one guy was like, man, I always thought I'd play Major League Baseball. And he had gotten in trouble or something in college, and he lost a scholarship or something, and then another guy wanted to start his own landscaping business, and he did, and he hit a hard year, and so it's but what always kind of stuck out to me is everybody wants, like we said, the easy path. Yeah. And they get complacent. It's easy to get complacent, where you are. You get somewhere and you're doing pretty well, and you don't really like it, but you're doing pretty good, so you're like, well, I guess this is it.
This is it.
And they just stay there, but I'm not a guy that can live for the weekend.
No.
That's how when I was machining, that's what I was like. I was living for the weekend because I hated going to work so much.
That's right. And the bad thing about that is you're 5 days out of your week are consumed with doing something you hate, so you can have 2 days to do something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And that formula never worked out for me.
No, and you really don't even get to enjoy 2 days because by like the afternoon of Sunday, I'd always be like, oh,
exactly,
man.
The impending doom.
Yep.
Settling in.
Yep. So, I mean, that's why would you not? I just don't see why you wouldn't just go after it. I mean, if somebody, I've had to deal with my little fair share of some haters and stuff. At the end of the day, they really don't matter.
No, they don't.
And like, I used to be really good at the paralysis by analysis kind of thing, where I'd be like, well, I don't know enough about this and researching it and stuff. And so finally I was like, I'm just going to start and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish more people would do.
And part of the reason that many of us don't is because there's a fear factor involved. What if something just totally fails? Then I will have lost money. I will have lost respect for myself. I will have lost credibility with everybody else. And so that paralyzes us as well. But then, a lot of times, Mike Reed, we used to, I'm not very much of a morning person, but when I played with Mike Reed for the 2 years that I did, I always made a point while we were rolling down the road, to get up at least 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Because he would always be up. He'd have some great coffee going, and he would have classical music blasting, like ear-shattering loud. Yeah. And if I got up, nobody else was up, and I got to just pick his brain for a little while. Mm-hmm. Extremely wise person. And so we would talk about songwriting and everything, and he said, a lot of songwriters never write a hit song because they've never given themselves permission to write a bad song. It's like it starts out and it doesn't sound right to them, and so they just push that one aside. They don't finish it. Yeah. He said, finish all your bad songs. Get out there and do it poorly one time. Yeah. Because once you do it poorly, then you'll find one clue as to how to do it better, and pretty soon you're going to find yourself in a good spot. And I think that's always really, really stuck with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's
we live a lot by the Getmo rule. You know about that?
I don't know.
It's good enough to move on.
Good enough to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so sometimes you can get so consumed with perfection. Yeah. That, and so sometimes, with writing a song, writing a sermon, writing, all the whatever pursuit you're after in life, sometimes it's just good to say this one's done and look at it and go, that's not my best duck decoy. Yeah. I'll do a better one. But you can spend so much time on that one thing that you never do another one. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I did whenever I was growing up. I would be notorious for starting something and never finishing it. And I guess it was a lot of times I'd be like, this is crap. And I would write, I like to write stories and things. And it took me, a long time before I was like, I'm going to write a screenplay, and I want to write a feature-length one, so like 100 pages or so. Yeah. And the first one, I remember it took me forever because I would start on it and write, and then I'd be like, this is garbage, and quit. And then I'd read like Stephen King or somebody would say something like, basically what you said, just push on through it.
Keep going.
Don't even read what you've wrote, but just go and just keep going. And I wrote that first one, and it was grueling. And it's terrible. I'm sure it's horrible, but it was like 100 pages, and just the sense of accomplishment knowing that I just did a 100-page screenplay. Yeah. And then I wrote 2 more pretty quickly after that. So it seems to get easier as you go with that. Yes. Now, they probably all still stink, but
you never know.
Yeah. But it was, I would have really not ever known if I would have just not done anything with it.
That's exactly right. And once again, just like you said, everything in your path, it has a purpose to it. Yeah. And it propels you and prepares you for what's coming next.
And see, so with you, probably songwriting, has it helped as preaching? Has it helped you with that?
Absolutely. Oh, man. Writing a song and writing a sermon are almost identical processes because it's more about what you leave out than what you leave in. Really? Yeah, and like a song has to have a hook. It has to have one main idea. She said yes. I said, wow. Everybody knows that, right? Okay, so sermon you have to do the same thing. What's the one thing that I want you to hear today? Yeah. What's the one thing that I feel like God is speaking to all of us today? And so you can't just say that one line and just leave.
Yeah.
You have to say why, and you have to say how, and you have to say, and a lot of it is identifying the problem. That's a big factor in songwriting and in sermon writing. You have to, it's kind of like when you make a new product, people have to know why they need it.
Yeah.
Here's the problem that it's going to solve.
Yeah.
And then you go through the how and the why, and then you do the big reveal of this is the idea, and hopefully, when people walk out, they're going to walk out with that one idea rolling around in their mind.
Yeah. Well, that's what I figured that they were very similar in that aspect.
Except for, a sermon you have to have one done every week.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a song done every week.
Yeah, you could have one hit song. I feel like if you had one great sermon that wouldn't carry over to being like a great pastor.
And some preachers are like that.
Yeah.
It's the same sermon preached with a different way.
Just a different way every time.
Yeah, I try not to do that.
Yeah. No, I think you do a good job. I think you've done a good job. And all right, so I was going to ask you a couple of just fun little questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. One of the arguments that people have a lot is about the age of the earth.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in the category of I guess more of the young earther, where they say about 6,000 years old or something. Yeah. I'm kind of in that category, whereas I know a lot of buddies of mine and stuff, they're in like the billions and years because they read the science stuff and hear that. And
I know.
I mean, so what do you, which it's not a closed hand topic. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. No. That's why I don't want somebody listening to be like offended at either one of our responses because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, but what are your thoughts?
I'm a young earth person for sure. And I'm also an intelligent design person.
Yeah.
And I'll go even one step further, not just intelligent design, but I believe that the earth was created and the universe was created to basically provide a place for the earth.
Yeah.
And so the universe is, we're finally, we think, reaching toward the end and the edges of the universe. But everything in the universe that science is discovering always points back to one thing, that the universe has had a beginning.
Yeah.
And so you can speculate about 2 billion years, whatever, and that's just as far-fetched to me as mine is to you, that kind of thing. Because you cannot deny that the earth had a beginning, the universe had a beginning, everything had a beginning. Try to explain that one. That's a difficult one. The easiest way is that somebody began it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've heard somebody say, because, they'll say, like, this rock aged 2 billion years. And someone was like, well, God, how do you know God didn't just, the way he made it?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't, I don't know how to, it's hard to describe it, like to make it where it sounds like it makes sense. But like when God just created that rock, it was that size and stuff there now. So like, and also, what is it, carbon aging or something?
Carbon dating.
Yeah. Carbon dating. One of my things that I've always said on that is, it's just a theory, because to prove it, somebody has to have lived
that's exactly right. It's a guess, and they'll tell you it's a guess. And I'm thankful that we have carbon dating, because it at least helps us to say, relative to this other thing, this is a lot older than this thing. But when we try to get it super accurate, they carbon date things that we know how old they are, and it comes out wrong sometimes.
Really? Yeah.
So, it's all wonderful, and I love science, and I love, just studying the way things are put together and all this stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I just really keep coming back to, I just know what I know in my heart, which is in the beginning, God created heaven and earth.
Yep.
Which also, by the way, is the first reference to baseball that we know of, in the big inning.
In the beginning. There you go.
Not the small inning.
In the big inning.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, so baseball's a divine sport.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Well, maybe I'll give it more shot then.
You don't have to.
I always said if I have trouble sleeping, then I just turn on some baseball and I can go to sleep.
Well, but motorcycles are mentioned in the Bible too.
Where at?
It says David's triumph was heard throughout the land. So now you know.
Well, then me and him are a lot alike. I love some loud pipes on something.
There you go. See? That's exactly right.
All right. Oh, good. I didn't know me and David had so much in common.
Yep, and it talks about David's dating life. It says David found honey and nectar.
He found honey and nectar. I like these are kind of the dad jokes.
Exactly, dad preacher jokes.
Do your daughters appreciate them?
No, they give me a courtesy laugh.
Yeah,
every time.
Yeah,
because they're good daughters.
I hope my kids will do that for me.
Yeah, they will. If you're good to them, they will. They absolutely will. They'll make you feel good about it.
Yeah.
Okay. What other question you got?
All right. Who was it? Was it Moses or Abraham that was like 600 years old?
Well, Abraham was definitely 600 years old.
Okay. How does that work? Because I've had people that are like, there's no way their time was different or something, because there's no way the dude was actually that many years old, like our years.
Well, Methuselah was 900 and something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Basically, it actually is very plausible, because you think about this, Garden of Eden, man, animals, all the environment, everything, was created to live eternally.
Yeah.
It was designed to never die. And so sin enters the world. All of that gets cut off. Now there's a timeline. Now we're all living in a timeline. But, Adam and Eve and their descendants were still, the onward regression of sin and its effects and evil and everything. They're still close enough to the original model. It's going to last a long, long time.
So they probably were very old.
Oh yeah, they were very, very old. It doesn't really specify, but later on they start telling how old people are. But then we see, by the time we get to when the Psalms were written, we see a reference to the Psalms that say, your life is going to end. If you're lucky, you'll get 80 years.
Really?
Yeah. So about that time is when the full effect of the downward spiral and downward slide of sin and evil and everything, decay, all this stuff. Because, decay was not a thing.
Yeah. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah. And we've been able to pump that back up a little bit at various different periods of time.
Yeah.
Now we're pretty confident that we can make somebody. I heard somebody say that in 20 years the average age will be 100. I mean, the average death age will be 100.
Yeah,
it's like I don't know if I even want to do that.
Yeah. So then, is there? I mean, just from would there be a chance of them getting back to like crazy years?
I think that anything is possible with, we've got a lot of technology and science that can, they're digging into, like we're going to replace some of your, with the stem cell stuff. And then they're implanting this DNA here and this, that, and the other. And they're going to be able to reverse the effects of probably a lot of things. I could imagine they could do that with diabetes and cancer, and if they finally get a handle on that. So I could imagine them doing things like that. But I don't know if there's enough time left in time to get to 900 or 600 or something like that.
Yeah, man. I don't either.
Plus, you have to think that they actually breathe clean air and drank clear water.
Yeah, there was no cars or anything back then.
It was, of course, they could be eaten by animals.
But there was cow farts.
Really?
There was cow farts, I'm sure. That's bad, according to Burger King.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that can be deadly.
That creates methane in the air.
That's exactly right.
That's what they say.
That's what I've heard.
Now, there's cows right out here. I live on a cow pasture.
So you're right in the thick of it.
I am. My expectancy is probably not that good.
I'm going to be praying for you with the cow farts.
Yeah, please, for my poor air that I'm taking in.
Yeah.
All right, aliens.
Yes.
Now, this is all right. So this is one. There's a couple that I don't think that I can't wrap my mind around, probably in terms of that they're real, but that I wish they would be, just because it'd be cool.
Yeah.
And the two of those is ghosts and aliens.
Yeah.
So what's your take? Because the Pentagon, did you see the thing they released of the weird Tic Tac thing that
I did.
What do you take? What's your take on all that?
I don't have any problem believing that there is another being out there.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I'm not sure. The patterns, the imprints that we put upon these aliens are always, just sort of eerily similar. Like they're always sort of human-like, but not quite. They're always way more intelligent than we are.
Yeah.
Because they built this thing that can fly, and anywhere they want to, and then when they get here, the cool thing is they breathe the same air as we do.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
Eat the same food, drink the same water, and of course they're intelligent enough to speak our language.
Yeah,
I have a hard time just really buying into that, because we can't right now go to Mars and
just breathe the air
unless we had a suit, and maybe they have suits. I don't know. The greatest commentary that I've ever heard on UFOs is by one of the very early Christian rock singers named Larry Norman. Larry Norman wrote a song called UFO. And in that song, you can look it up sometime, there's this line.
I'm going to write that down.
Larry Norman, UFO. You can find it on YouTube. But in the song, he says, "And if there's life on other planets, then I'm sure that he must know. And he's been there once already, and he's died to save their souls." That's kind of a heavy concept.
That is. So they have would it be the same Jesus?
Well, I mean, there's only one.
So Jesus would go and die for the aliens?
Yeah. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that, but I mean, that's kind of his take on it.
That is an interesting take.
That if God created the universe and there's other life in the universe, then they must have been created by him, so they must be loved by him in the same way, because God is love, and those universal principles apply universally. So
yeah,
there you go.
The thing that people always say, they're like, but he doesn't mention them in the Bible, but there are things in there. I guess if I were to counter that, I would say, well, he does say in there that there's things we just won't know.
That's right. So, I mean,
that's kind of what I counter it with. But
and he says, there's sheep of other flocks that you don't know about. Now, that could be Gentiles. It could be aliens. Yeah, I don't know. He never explains that.
Now, I know the way the angels looked. If I saw one of them, I would think it was an alien.
Yeah.
They had like 7 heads and
crazy stuff.
Terrifying looking. Not the little Pluto looking dude flying around.
No. They didn't have harps or anything like that. Yeah.
All right. So would you apply that now? Ghosts.
Yeah.
What would you say? Because I don't believe that when you die, your soul doesn't just float around on Earth.
Right.
I mean, I do believe you either go to heaven or to hell. Yeah. I mean, and I don't believe, I guess, in purgatory in between. No. So I mean, ghosts, would that be? But now demons, I still believe demons are very real.
Yes, they are.
Now my not argument, but kind of how I see them today is, I would even argue to say that people that are addicted to drugs and things, could that not be a modern day demon?
Absolutely. There is a spirit world.
Yeah.
And the spirit world is larger and more real than we have any knowledge of, because we are very finite beings. And there was a time when we were in perfect relationship with God that we could see all those things. You know how they say you only use 10% of your brain?
Yeah.
What's the other 90% for? It's for all that stuff that we used to be able to do that we can't do right now. That we're going to do one day, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think, anyway.
So then maybe the aliens are just people that have that other part unlocked.
That is something to think about.
There you go.
Could be. My old school church upbringing says, well, there's no such thing as ghosts. There's only demons. So if somebody sees something paranormal, then it's got to be of the devil.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. I think there's enough sort of evidence that there's, spirit activity kind of, happening in different places. And we know that God is all powerful in the supernatural world. But, the enemy is also powerful.
Yeah.
Not quite as powerful, but more powerful than we are.
Yeah.
Which is why we need, our spirituality to counteract that spirituality. as far as the idea that, okay, so years ago, Captain John never came back, and so his widow still walks out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hesitate to believe it, but I've never been in one of those houses where that happens.
Yeah.
And maybe if I saw it, I would believe it too.
Yeah. I've got some family members that swear that they've experienced it all in the same house. Some really weird, bizarre
things moving around. And
like a doors open and close, windows shut, and hear children laughing in the hallways and stuff. And for some reason, the inner child in me, I've always wanted to have some ghostly experience.
Yeah.
And
I've always not wanted to have. I'm not that fascinated, but I hope that you do.
Well, I don't know though. You might be putting some bad juju on me there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you might be putting it on me because I'm saying no, right?
Yeah. Every time you say no,
I know.
It ends up happening. You might see a ghostly apparition on the way home. If you do, you got to call and tell me.
Okay. I will.
But man, no, I don't know. If I do have an encounter, I hope he's like Casper. I don't want
That's exactly right.
I don't want no bad ghost experience. So, well, man, it's been fun. I don't want to keep you too long. But,
no, it's been great. But I have a final question for you.
Okay.
Now, I'm sure that a lot of your listeners are big fans of Ted Nugent, right?
Oh yeah.
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 I am as well.
I've tried to get him on here.
Well, you might someday.
Maybe.
Because he's kind of a real kind of guy.
He is.
But before Ted Nugent became the Ted Nugent that we know and love today, he was, he was a fabulous recording artist.
Yeah.
So I want to know what your top 3 Ted Nugent songs are.
Oh, man. Well, I'm on... some people won't like one of them, but Wang Tang Poon Tang.
All right. The truth comes out. Yes. There you go.
Stranglehold is a classic, and then Free for All is that's probably my all-time favorite one.
Okay.
But that's
a good list. That's
my favorite ones. I mean, and I love Cat Scratch Fever and all them others, but Free for All that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Stranglehold is just that's like his. Everybody knows Stranglehold.
It's a classic. I mean, it is an amazing. Love that song.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so my top 3, Stranglehold is number 2. Cat Scratch Fever is number 3.
Yeah.
But my favorite Ted Nugent song is Hey Baby.
Hey, okay, I like that one. I love the guitar in Hey Baby.
Just the guitar riff is absolutely unbelievable. Here's a little trivia about Ted Nugent as a guitar player. Ted Nugent never plugged into any effects pedals.
Really?
Yeah, he used a semi-hollow guitar, and he used these big, amp stacks behind him. And he had places marked on the stage where he could stand, and we would kind of halfway face his amp, and he would get a particular kind of sound.
Really?
That's how he controlled his guitar sound.
Dang, did he come up with that?
Yeah.
Wow.
He sure did. He came up with everything he does in his life, right?
He was the spirit. He was feeling the spirit.
That's right.
He's right. Like the spirit of the wild. That's all that.
Right.
Man.
But anyway, no, I've had a great time too. This has been a really fun time, and I'm glad you're doing this, and I'm glad that you allowed me to be a part of it.
Well, like I said, I'm glad to get you on here, and I'm glad the direction that it's gone in that I could have you on here.
Yes, absolutely. Me too.
Nate, now, real quick, did you know the band that he was in before it was Ted Nugent?
I cannot remember right now. Humble Pie?
The Amboy Dukes.
You got me on that one. That's a good one. Amboy Duke.
I bet a bunch of people don't know that.
They do not. I guarantee you they don't, because not only do they not know about CDs and cassettes, but they don't know about record albums either. So there you go.
No. But no, man. Yeah, thank you. And I'll get you back on sometime.
That'd be awesome. And I've got a new podcast starting up.
Really?
I'm going to revive the Wednesday Drive Live podcast, and then I've got one of my own that I'm going to start up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So
what's the premise? Can you relate
for my own?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So it is. I don't want to give away the name just yet, but it's church centered.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage the church to move forward by poking fun at the church, by taking the church seriously, by evaluating the church. And so we're going to have a lot of different guests. It's going to be guest driven. And we're going to have outsiders, insiders, other pastors, other church leaders from different disciplines and all these different kinds of things. And it's all going to be just uplifting and encouraging.
Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah. It's going to be harder and harder to be a church person as we go along in this crazy world. And so this is going to be fuel for the fire.
Yeah. Well, good. Man, and I like the kind of, you're going to have some humor in there.
Yes, definitely.
Good. Well, hey, I'll be excited. When will that be?
The Wednesday Drive Live will be in the next couple of weeks, and then this one's probably going to be 3 or 4 weeks out. I'm going to do some additional prep work for it, and I'm going to get some guests lined up, and I want to get some podcasts in the can so that I can have good stuff
Several
right out
to
of the
lit
gate.
out.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Brother Peter, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate
everybody. What's the church? Holly Grove? Is it hollygrovechurch.com?
Yes. Yes.
And say they can follow along what's going on
there.
Sure
can. And you can find our Facebook page where we post all of our video content. We've got a YouTube channel. Always hollygrovechurch.com.
Okay. And you're not super active of a poster on Facebook.
Not yet.
Okay, well, but you can look him up, Peter Jeffrey, on Facebook.
Yes, you can. And I'm coming out with to support the podcast and some other things. I'm going to come out with a new platform for social media.
Okay.
So it'll be super easy to find, and it'll all be content that is consistent with where we're going with this thing.
Awesome.
So, I'm going to have to get really good at posting and taking pictures.
Man, that's the worst part.
I know.
That's the worst part when I started this. I'm not a self-promoter.
I know, but you have to learn to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to get over it.
And you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for joining me.
All right, till next time.
Yeah, everybody, appreciate y'all for tuning in. And real quick before we go, I forgot earlier, go to wildertactical.com. You can they got mag pouches, belt pouches for anything, minimalist belt pads, all your tactical gear there, and you can get 10% off with the code LOGAH10, and it helps me out a lot too. So please, folks, do that. If you enjoy the show, always subscribe, share, and rate it. And thank y'all for listening. So y'all have a blessed day. Thank you.